I never thought a morning drive home could feel like watching your whole life get erased, but there I was. Truck slowing, gravel crunching under the tires, and the old wooden bridge that had been in my family for 3 generations was gone. Splintered pieces scattered like someone had taken a broom to our history. My chest tightened before my brain had finished making sense of it. That bridge wasn't just boards and nails. My grandfather built it, my father repaired it, and I'd sworn to keep it standing. I jumped out, boots sinking into the dirt, and the orange sign nailed to a post flapped in the wind. Lakeside Ridge Association, unauthorized structure, removed for community safety. LRA Compliance Division. My hands shook as I took pictures, slow and methodical, because you document the throat before you strike. I could have walked back to town, called someone, made a fuss, but this wasn't about flexing a badge. They didn't know who I was. Let them keep thinking I was just another rancher with mud under his nails. Martin showed up 15 minutes later, dusty and blinking at the wreckage. "Who did this?" he asked. And I told him the words low and cold. "The HOA." He whistled a sound that cut through the quiet. Men in polos and khakis had been walking my boundary for weeks. Clipboards and polite smiles, but when people start wearing uniforms and thinking they own the map, that's when you get trouble. The bridge was registered as a historic structure, federally protected, and somebody had knocked it down like it was a rotten fence post. I didn't storm the HOA office shouting. I walked in calm, because calm has teeth. The receptionist blinked when I gave my name like she'd misplaced it in her Rolodex. Ed Branson, the vice president, stepped out with that practiced smile. It was a hazard, he said, meaning he liked the new view. We were doing the community a favor. He said it like a man handing you a compliment. I said, "Questions. Did you file with the county, the Federal Preservation Office?" He shrugged. "We acted on complaints. You can feel arrogance when it's fresh. It smells like someone else's lunch." I left without making threats. I left with a plan. Cameras, caution tape that read "Federal Property Crime Scene," trail cams tucked in trees, timestamps lined up like soldiers. Let them come back thinking the coast was clear. We spent the next days gathering proof, because paperwork bites harder than a gun when it's done right. 2 nights later, my phone pinged at 3 in the morning. Trailcam triggered 3 men in dark clothes padding across the creek bed, flashlights, low placing flags like they were making a map for someone else's hands. One kicked over my sign, another snapped photos. I flipped on the ATV lights and watched them freeze. You can see guilt in the way a man drops a clipboard. They scattered. Martin and I rode out in silence, the cold air slapping our faces. I took pictures until my fingers cramped. Then somebody blew up my shed. Not burned, not tipped, blown. A bright flash lighting the night on camera, a crater where my tools used to be, a shredded gas can lying like a confession. The smell of burning chemicals stuck to the air. That's when the whole thing stopped being juvenile HOA harassment and became arson on federally protected property. I called the sheriff, then the contacts you keep for when things go sideways. When the deputy saw my credentials, he blinked. That changes how people listen. I fed the footage to people who could move mountains: the Department of the Interior, the U.S. Attorney's Office, a friend at the Marshals. I did not go viral on social. I let the paper trail do the yelling for me. Meanwhile, Ed sent a form email about a community meeting, and some guy in a suit showed up at my porch waving a zoning proposal like a peace offering. The audacity of asking me to join them after they'd torn down history on my land, laughable, if not criminal. And they escalated. A fake lien showed up with a big red stamp: foreclosure, intent for $27,000 in fabricated fines. Someone tried to cut my telecom box out of the ground, claiming extended coverage. Ridgecom workers rolled in, admitted on camera they had no authorization, and drove off with my provider's equipment like they were stealing a library book. Cattle released at night, pasture gates cut. This wasn't a letter dispute anymore. It was an attempt to terrorize and devalue. They were trying to manufacture a path to take the property by turning it into a problem. That's where the twist crept in. An older man, not the polished kind on the HOA website, showed up at my gate one afternoon. He didn't look me in the eye and handed over an envelope like a man giving away a secret. Inside was a check for $5,000 and a handwritten note offering a settlement. It was pathetic, and telling someone inside the machine had conscience enough to pass me the bandage, or someone realized the operation was starting to smell like felony. Either way, it cracked the illusion this was orchestrated and the actors weren't all on the same page. The federal folks dug. Hannah Thomas, an investigator who didn't do small talk, stood on my land and cataloged everything: the demolished bridge site, the charred shed bones, the tampered telecom pole, the flags, the cameras, the fake foreclosure paperwork. The evidence read like a case file: trespass, arson, forgery, attempted seizure. The department opened a multi-agency task force, and something remarkable happened. My fury translated into other people's courage. Neighbors with their own HOA scars started calling. Reporters started showing up. People who'd been bullied silently by boards with ledgers and gavel hung up their silence and showed up in court. Court was crowd-scented and electric. Ed swaggered in with 3 attorneys like he was on stage. My lawyer Ethan told the story, plain and clean. Demolition of a federally protected landmark, arson, trespass, counterfeit liens. This isn't homeowner drama, it's criminal conduct. The judge granted an emergency injunction that froze the HOA's reach on my property, and the news smells like wildfire when it gets going. People from other states emailed with their own horror stories. Suddenly, the little bridge was more than nostalgia. It was a rallying point. They fought back sideways, unmarked SUVs rolling by, a friendly man telling me to make the mess go away, drones buzzing low like flies. I snagged 7 drones with an old-school net launcher and handed them to the feds. We found trackers hidden in the barn's weather vane and under an ATV's dash. The people behind the HOA weren't small-time an offshore development outfit in Miami was funding the hostile play shell companies layered on top of shell companies. The FBI and DOJ started using words like RICO, racketeering, wire fraud. And suddenly Ed's confident smirk was a thing you could subpoena. Rebuilding felt like medicine. Local carpenters, retired craftsmen, even a high school shop class showed up with tools and coffee. We rebuilt the bridge, plank by plank, using the same style, the same old-growth wood where we could, carving my grandfather's note into a bronze plaque. May this bridge always keep our family connected no matter what storms try to tear it down. The bridge stopped being mine alone. It became a thread in the county fabric. People hammered with crooked hands and steady hearts. They brought food and stories and their own scars, and in 2 weeks the bridge was reborn. Ed Branson went to jail. The developers behind the HOA got federal subpoenas and their shell companies started to unravel. Congress even began to look at HOA oversight because sometimes a small thing pushed hard enough can tilt a whole system. But the real satisfaction wasn't in headlines or indictments. It was standing on a porch with Martin at dusk, the cattle grazing the creek, whispering under the new planks and feeling a quiet that tastes like justice. What I learned, and this is the lesson that keeps settling in, like dust after a storm, is simple structures meant to protect people can be turned into weapons if no one watches. Power concentrates where neighbors stop asking questions and start deferring because it's easier. Justice isn't a fireworks show. It's a slow, relentless bookkeeping of the truth. You win by documenting, by calling witnesses, by showing up in forums and courtrooms, and by refusing to fold when someone tries to make your history a ledger line to profit off. We got the bridge back. We got the truth out. We made the people who tried to buy us out answer for it. That relief, that slow, cool wash of it, is a kind of happiness I didn't expect. But here's the thing I want to leave you with. When a local institution starts acting like it's above the rules, do you look the other way because it's convenient, or do you stand up because it's right? Tell me, what would you have done if that was your land, your history, your family name? Share your story. Tell me where you draw the line. And if you've ever been bullied by a system built to protect you, drop it in the comments. I want to hear it.